Thank you for watching. This is Counter back with another video, and this one's still covering the. This is another devlog on the beat 'em up game that I am currently working on at the moment, uh, and just have a few updates since the previous update that was sent out uh earlier this week. And what I did was you saw in that one that actually had the player character up and running. I didn't have a real good enemy up and functioning during that time. But I did make some minor updates to the player. One, I have it so that I just set it so that for one, for the player there's no more skin. There's no player skin and no player box anymore. If you saw if you have seen the previous video, you saw that in that one I created a player skin which has the samurai warrior on it, and I had a player box where on that box that's where the skin gets attached to that box, and that's how the player was functioning. The box has all the player mechanics on it, and the skin was doing was just performing the animations. Um, Outside of that, all the damage was being done directly to the box, and that was great and all, but it wasn't really helping me with being able to it was getting harder and harder to maintain updating those two features um over and over again. And it was getting hard to keep track of being able to know what when to attach the skin to to the box and things like that. It basically got very cumbersome and confusing. So what I did was I just took the there's no more skins no more, which this is the skin group. I just basically put the actual samurai inside of the players group, and just basically have all the player mechanics being lobbied directly onto the samurai itself, instead of just the player box. That's the only change that I've made um in this game. Only, but I did add the some enemies into the game now. So now we have the enemy in the game, and right now we just have one that's functioning at the moment. So right now here's the states for the machine. Here's the state machine for it. Basically going idle, walk, run, attack. Attack 1, attack 2, which I'm trying to figure out how to get attack 2 working, but that's going to be something I'm going to add later on. Get the when the enemy's hurt, when the enemy's dead, and what happens during those times. I did a Now have another group for enemy distance and animations. So it's basically here it's going to be checking distance between the player object and the enemy itself, and also this is where all the animations is going to take place as well. So right now here I got basic movements, and what I'm doing is in this first one right here is checking distance. It's checking distance between the player and the enemy right here. So that's what happens. It basically creates this it creates I have a variable instance variable on the enemy group called e distance, and basically what it does, it gathers the distance between the player's x and y, and the player's x and y and the enemy's x and y. And then what it does, it basically sets state for the enemy, the states for the enemy, and basically what I did was I did enemies dot state. It's basically just pointing it to that variable, to that instance variable known as state. And this one right here, I'm going over what direction, checking what direction the player is facing, and I'm basically doing a for each loop. So basically this being applied to every enemy instance that's in the game. Basically checking, saying, hey, if you're not dead or you're not hurt, pretty much if the player's X is less than yours, then go ahead and basically face right. If not, go ahead and face left. All right. And then this script right here goes over whether the enemy should be moving or not. Once again, I'm applying this for loop to all the enemies that are created within the layout. And then what I'm doing, I'm setting their movement I'm setting them if had a instance variable in there checking for if the enemy is moving that says is moving, and with the if is moving equal to true, I have a behavior inside the enemy object. Let me actually go here to the enemy. If you go to the enemy, we have a couple of behaviors here. I have this move to behavior, which I'm enabling this. And then what I'm doing is I'm having two other triggers two other Boolean variables that's being tracked in here. One, if the enemy is walking towards the player, and if the enemy's running towards the player. And what I do is I have it so that the speed changes depending on how far the player have this so the speed change depending on which action is the enemy deciding to take at that time. And then also having so that if movement is not true, or if you're not hurt or dead, then go ahead and just basically set the running and walking to false, and basically set your speed to 0. Now this is where some of the magic starts to happen. This is where it's checking the distance and applying the proper animations. It's checking the distance between the player and the player and the enemy, and applying the proper animation, whether walk, run, or whatever animation that needs to take place. All right. So I have two types of enemies in the game. One, I have a wait enemy, and I have an attacker enemy. And what that means is the wait enemy, he just waits for the player to get within distance. Then he goes ahead and just starts walking towards that direction, and eventually running towards the player. So that's what this is. This is being applied to every enemy that has the enemy type called wait. And what happens is it's doing a couple of things. It's saying, hey, if you're less than 600 pixels, less than 600 pixels away, and you are greater than equal to 300, then go ahead and start moving, but then I want you to walk. So he starts walking towards the player, kind of like he's investigating what's going on, right? Um, then I have another one here that says if you're greater than 600 pixels away, if the player is more than 600 pixels away, then set moving to false. Basically, he's gonna go to idle. And then we have the third one here that says if you're less than equal to 300, then we want you to change your movement. You still want you to continue on moving. We want to go to walking. We want to stop walking, and we want to run to the player. And then we have this one right here where it's basically saying that if you're less than 300 but greater than 100 pixels, then continue to run. And which I could have just basically just not even put this here, but I don't know why. And then also this one where if it's less than 100 pixels and you're not hurt, go ahead and stop moving and start attacking. That means you arrived at the player, and you should start attacking him. And that's what the wait enemy. And I have the attacker enemy, where this one is just pretty much when it spawns, it just runs directly towards the player. That's all it does, and it will just run towards the player and attack him when he gets close. And that's pretty much all it is. This is basically saying just pretty simple. If the player is greater than 100 pixels away, just run towards the player. Turn walking off and just run towards the player. But if you're less than 100 pixels away, start attacking him. That's pretty much plain and simple, straight to the point, right? And then also this is checking if player is walking or running or is idle. So basically what happens. So this is being applied once again with in a for each between each enemy. It's basically saying if you're not walking, if you walking is if it's walking is equal to true, and you're not running, attacking, shooting, hurt, or dead, then set your animation walk and go to state of walk. We already went over. Basically, it's going to go into the state machine and start playing an animation called walking, and it's going to basically turn running to false. If you're running and you're not walking, attacking, shooting, hurt, or dead, then go ahead and switch the state to run and switch walking to false. And if you're not doing anything, any of those things, walking, running, shooting. Well, if you're not moving at all, because moving controls walking and running. If you're not moving at all, and if you're not attacking, shooting, is hurt or dead, then just switch to idle. That's pretty much all that's going on. And then here's the enemy attack here. It's pretty much going. I'm pretty much going over the enemy attack. And the enemy attack here is basically going ahead and just applying it to all the enemies. And you're going to say checking if you're hurt or dead. It's saying if you're attacking, then move to should be equal to you should stop moving. Basically, what it does, it just stops the movement behavior. So basically, it basically stops you, and basically change your state to attack. Basically, you start using the attack animations. All right. Um, this is where the enemy is hurt. It goes self-explanatory here. Basically, if you're hurt, stop moving, and basically it disables this and puts the enemy to a hurt state, and he just basically go into hurt animation, and when he finishes the hurt animation, he basically goes back to normal and goes back to attacking again. All right. And also, enemy is dead, where there's another self-explanatory one. If you're dead, if dead is equal to true, basically it's checking if it's less than zero, if it's greater than equal, if it's less than equal to zero, set death to true, dead to true. And if you're dead, basically change your animation to dead to turn off all attacks, turn off if you're hurt, turn off if you're moving, disable all movement whatsoever, and disable the move to function. And then also upon you being destroyed, because when it goes, cause I have it set up in the dead sprite animation as it's cycling. Once it hits the last sprite, it automatically destroys the enemy sprite or the enemy object. And then upon being destroyed, add a count, subtract one counter from the enemy to beat counter, which that handles um, enemies, the number of enemies that you need to defeat in the game, that the player needs to defeat in the game. Um, I will go over that shortly, or maybe since it's getting longer, I'll go over that code in the in another video. But this one's going over enemy spawning right here. Basically, I create a function, and this function, I kind of got this out of I forgot what tutorial I was looking at, but this is a function uh that is used to spawn the player. Actually, it was in the it was a tutorial I was looking at. I had viewed, and it was in, I think it was in the Construct store, and they had a beat 'em up tutorial. And I was trying, and this one helped me with being able to come up with a good function to have the players being spawned. Now, I actually love this one. I just added in these little this area right here, but mainly up top here. I just basically took most of this from some of this from that tutorial. So what it does here, this is a function that just simply creates the player. So what I have here, I have also a player index that basically selects what player is going to be spawned. Because what I did was I created like a nice a couple of players here, a couple of enemies here that could be spawned depending on what this index is. So right now, when the player spawn, I have it so it just summons the monk. It gives it 5 HP. I mean, it gives it a 5 HP, and sets the enemy and set the max HP to 5. I got a typo there. Put max E max. Put max E HP. But I set max E max to 5, which is the maximum number of health that an enemy could have. Well, right now in the game, uh, and then set the enemy HP to the max HP, to the max E max variable. And then go ahead and set this type to attacker, which means, like I said, the attacker one will go ahead, and the attacker enemy basically goes and he just immediately just runs towards the player and starts attacking him. Then I set the movement to false, which I don't know why I did that, but I just left it there. And then and then what it does is it adds 1 to the beast, to the enemy to beat counter. And because I'm basically how a beat 'em up game, you basically are in a you are in an area where you must defeat the enemies before moving on to the next area, and that's exactly what is going on. And this one here just basically setting the this basically setting so that the enemy cannot run through solid objects and things like that. And then what happens down here, I added this feature to the code because I want to have it so I may have different enemies in the game. So this one, since this one's set to the monk, this one will summon the monk here. And I have a samurai here where if I wanted to, when I wanted to have it so the samurai object is created, just switch this to samurai and it'll go ahead and switch it. It'll go ahead and um create the samurai instead of the monk. All right. And lastly, then I just go ahead and have it so every tick that the default controls are always set to false. Um, and and what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go over some more scripts in another video. Actually, I think I have one more I had to go over, which is the combat system real quick. And I'm trying to finish everything regarding the enemy in this one. So basically, this is all that's what's happening here. And the attack is basically just having it so that if the enemy is attacked or enemy is attacking player, I have it so that the enemy has its own hitbox and basically just like how you saw how the block was attacking the player, pretty much it's the same thing. The player is blocking, and if the player is blocking, if it's not blocking, take HP. If he's blocking, then take one away from his block meter, and then have it so that if the player attacks the enemy, basically all these it basically has the same features as what it was when it was the box. Basically, just having it so that it took HP. Now it just takes HP away instead of just not. It not only just knocks him back, it takes HP from him as well. Okay, but I thank you for looking at this video. I know this was pretty long, and I did a long review of just coding the actual enemy itself. In the next video, I'm gonna go over the rest of the features that were added over the past couple of days, and we're gonna finish up. Then we're gonna go ahead and do a quick show and tell of how all this fits together in the game so far. And other than that, I thank you for checking out this video. Once again, if you like the content that I produce, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel so that you're notified each time I drop a new video or new devlog. Okay, this is Cat on the Back, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, peace.